Whoop whoop. I ran out of storage space, so it cut out on me. But I didn't even realize that it had cut out for like 2 minutes until my camera app like closed out from not being used. So I uploaded the last one, went outside, had a little smoke, changed the angles a little so I don't look quite so something something. And we're back. We're back. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go find chapter 3, part 1. That sounds right, right? Okay. Except I didn't eat it, because after that, the smell of blood made me gag. And to this day, I can't eat any meat I've seen or smelled raw, which my husband complains about all the time. But until he's worn a deer sweater, he can just shut the hell up. He says it's all in my mind, but it's totally not. And I've even offered to take some sort of blind smell test, like they did in the Pepsi challenge, where he holds bowls of blood up to my nose so I can prove that I can smell blood. But he won't do it, probably because he's some kind of anal about our bowls. He wouldn't even let me use one for throwing up when I was sick. He was all, vomit bowl? Who uses a vomit bowl? And I was all, I use a vomit bowl. Everyone uses a vomit bowl. You keep it near you in case you can't make it to the toilet. And he was all, no, you use a trash can. And I was all like, you sick fuck. I'm not throwing up in a trash can. That's totally barbaric. And then he yelled, that's what normal people do. And I screamed, that's how civilization breaks down. And then I refused to speak to him for the rest of the day because he made me yell at him while I was all vomity. Did you notice how I just skipped right past having a husband, even though this paragraph is supposed to be about my childhood? My God, this is going to be a terrible book. But both stories have to do with blood and vomit, so that's kind of impressive in a way that's really less impressive and more just kind of sad and disturbing. Number 2. On the list of things most people have never experienced or could have even possibly imagined, but that totally happened to me. In case you've forgotten what we were talking about, because number 1 was way too long and needs to be edited or possibly burned. Most people don't have poisonous tap water in their house. Most people don't get letters from the government telling them not to drink their poisonous tap water because dangerous radon has leaked into their well. In fact, most people don't get their poisonous tap water from a well at all. Concerned relatives would question my mother about the risks of my sister and me being exposed to all that radon, but she waved them off, saying, oh, they couldn't swallow it even if they wanted to. They'd throw it up immediately. It's that toxic. So, no worries. And then she'd send us off to brush our teeth with it and bathe in it. My mom was a big proponent of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger theory, almost to the point where she seemed to be daring the world to kill us. This theory worked well enough for my sister, who has never been sick a day in her life, and is one of those Amazonian women who could squat in a field to have a baby and then pick up the baby and keep on hoeing, except also the field would be on fire, and she'd be all like, fuck you, fire, and walk through it like that scary robot in Terminator. And also her baby would be fire resistant and would be karate chopping the flames like a tiny badass. I've tried to have this same level of pioneer toughness, but every couple of months I have a total breakdown or catch some kind of weird disease that only animals get. Like the time I got human parvo, which totally exists and is no fucking picnic. Or the time when I was brushing my hair and heard a pop in my neck, and I could barely even breathe, it hurt so much. Then I drove myself to work and I almost passed out from a combination of the pain and the not breathing. And when I got there, I hurt so much I couldn't even move my mouth to talk. So I wrote, I have a broken neck on a Post-it note, and my bewildered office maid drove me to the hospital. Turns out I had herniated a disc, and the doctor gave me a pamphlet on domestic abuse and kept asking me whether someone was hurting me at home, because apparently most people don't herniate their disc simply from brushing their hair too hard. I prefer to think that most people don't just brush their hair as enthusiastically as I do. Number 3. Most people have running water. I mean, we mostly had running water, except when we didn't, which was often. As my sister and I would always say to each other, you know, you never really appreciate your poisonous well water until it's gone. In the summer, the water would occasionally stop for no reason whatsoever. And in the winter, the pipes would freeze, and we'd be forced to fill up pots of water from our cistern, and then warm the icy water on the stove to bathe in. It's even less glamorous than it sounds. I once pointed out to my mother that the water from the cistern was slightly brown, and that it didn't really seem like the cleanest way to wash your hair, but she sighed at me in disappointment, saying, "It's pronounced beige," as if the pronunciation somehow made it fancier. Okay, I capitulated grudgingly. The cistern water seemed slightly more beige than the water from the tap, but my mom just shrugged it off because apparently she didn't trust water she could see. Number 4. Most people don't have a cistern or even know what a cistern is. Some of them say that they have a cistern, and then they just politely add that the word is actually pronounced sister. And then I just nod because I really don't want to have to explain that a cistern is actually an enormous metal can that catches rainwater, sort of like an above-ground well for people who can't actually afford a well. But no one wants to explain that because, honestly, who's going to admit they can't afford a well? Not me, obviously, because we had a well, but one that was filled with poisonous radon. Number 5. Most people don't have live raccoons in the house. My dad was always rescuing animals. And by rescuing animals, I mean killing the mother and then discovering she had babies and bringing the babies home to raise in the bathtub. Once he brought home 8 newborn raccoons in a bucket for us to raise. When the orphan raccoons were little, my mom sewed tiny jams for them to wear because this was the 80s and jams were quite popular then. And they were adorable. But then the raccoons got big enough to climb out of the bathtub and pretty much destroyed the entire house. Raccoons are totally OCD, by the way. They are driven to wash everything they can see, which you'd think would make them smell better, but it doesn't, because they smell all musky and vaguely sour like one-night stands. When the raccoons were old enough, we returned them to the woods, except for one raccoon that we kept as a pet. His name was Rambo, and he'd learn how to turn on the bathroom sink and would wash random things in it all the time, like it was his own private river. If I had been thinking, I would have left some wool lights and my delicates by the sink for him to rinse out, but you never think to turn your pet raccoon into a tiny butler until it's too late. Once, we came home to find Rambo in the sink, washing a tiny sliver of soap that had been a brand new bath-size bar that morning. He looked exhausted and like he wanted someone to stop him and put him to bed. But when we tried to take away the last bit of soap, he growled at us, so we let him finish. Because at that point, I guess it was like a vendetta, if raccoons could have vendettas. Sometimes when I'm working on an impossible project that I know I should just give up on and someone tries to take it away, I growl and scream, "There can be only one!" Which is both weird and inappropriate, but I think that's probably exactly how Rambo was feeling, with his soap sliver and puckered little fingers covered in radon water. And it makes me sad. But then I laugh, because it reminds me that right after the soap incident, my mom insisted that Rambo needed to live outside in a chicken cage to protect him from himself. I had placed him on top of the cage to pet him when my little sister, Lisa, who was about 7 then, whacked him in the nose, because she was kind of a dick at the time. Then Rambo flipped the fuck out, stood up on his hind legs, grimaced, and jumped directly onto my sister's face. He grabbed her onto her ears like he was some kind of horrible raccoon mask, and he was hissing and looking right into her eyes like, "I will bring you down, bitch." And my sister was screaming and flailing her arms, and it was totally awesome. The next day, my dad took Rambo to the farm, which I thought meant that he actually took him to my grandfather's farm to live. But now that I think about it, it probably had less to do with going to the farm than buying one. And now I'm sad again. But then I think about the fact that my dad was probably pointing the gun at Rambo, and Rambo was probably wearing his little jams and was all, "Hi there, mister," And my dad probably sighed defeatedly. 1. Footnote. Is defeatedly a real word? As in, she sighed defeatedly, as spell check implied that defeatedly isn't a real word? Fuck it, it's going in the book. And I'm pretty sure that makes it a real word. Me and Shakespeare, making shit up as we go. And my dad probably sighed defeatedly, saying something like, "Ah, fuck. Just go on then. Here's $10 and some soap." Because deep down, my father is a total softie. Unless he's inadvertently killing the mother of a bunch of baby raccoons, then you better stand the fuck back because you're totally going to get blood on you. There are pictures. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them. Oh, wait, that's the one with the chickens. Hold on. That's Rambo. Look at him. And his little jams. And it says, photographic proof of Rambo in his jams. Also pictured, Teen Beat magazine with Kirk Cameron on the cover. Records and VHS tapes. It's like the 80s threw up all over this raccoon. I couldn't even make this shit up, people. The other picture says, cistern, me, chickens, and the back of this photo says, 1975, Jenny and her chickens. A dog killed them not long afterward. Funny, I feel fine. Look at her, she's so little. Where are we? Number 6. Most people don't go out into the woods to catch armadillos so that their fathers can race them professionally. Also, when you find one and pull it out by its tail, most girls' fathers won't scream out, "Mind the teeth! That one looks like a biter!" Probably because most fathers don't love their daughters as much as my father loves me. Or maybe because they didn't make their daughters pull out live armadillos out of tree stumps. Hard to tell. Honestly, though, those girls are missing out, because there's nothing like seeing your father down on his hands and knees with 5 other grown men screaming and slapping the ground to scare their respective armadillos into crossing the finish line first. And when I say there's nothing like it, what I mean is, holy shit, these people are fucking insane. Usually when I tell people my dad was a Texas armadillo racing champion, they assume I'm exaggerating. But then I pull out his silver armadillo racing championship ring, which is, of course, shaped like an armadillo. And then they're all like, "Crap on a crack cracker. You're actually serious." And then they usually leave quickly. The gold armadillo championship ring would be more impressive to show off, but we don't have it anymore because my father traded it for a Victorian funeral carriage. And no, I'm not joking, because why the fuck would I joke about that? But I do have photographic proof. I think it might actually even be in focus. And the caption reads, "Why yes, that is the shining winner's ring of the armadillo. Glitterati also pictured my father during an unfortunate Magnum PI phase. Confused spectators, unnamed armadillo." What are we at? We're at number 7, but we're just at 14 minutes now, so I think I'm gonna stop and continue on this list in another video. Thanks for hanging out, gang. I do love reading it, and I haven't read this for a while, so it always cheers me up. I hope you have a great night, a great day, a great time zone. Take care.